Welcome everybody to the Diggens Point podcast. This is the Dud,
This is Fort.
And this is Glorf.
and we're excited to get started to talk with you today. We're excited to broadcast our thoughts on the Sanders verse. We're coming back at you after Christmas break. It's been a good Christmas break. How was you guys' Christmas break? Been Fort Glorf? How would you say your Christmas break was?
It was good. I liked it. Enjoyed lots of hobbies with friends and family and those around me. Got some really cool presents. I know you guys can't see, but I got a doom slug. And my daughter who got an old slug. It's like gray and has a mustache and is really cute.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the plushy Doom Slug, by the way. We didn't find an actual Tanix yet, so. But
I can't officially release that information.
if we do, you viewers will be the first to know that when I get my hands on a live Tanix. So, what about you, Glorf? How was your holidays?
Christmas was good. I don't know. Good Christmas.
Succinct, but very blunt. Well, since it's technically not the end of the new year, at least when we're recording this, by the time it goes out, it'll probably be the new year. Maybe we'll get it out before the new year. Uh, but we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start by discussing our favorite part of the year of Sanderson and the things that we got most excited for. Not necessarily the books, because like the book's got a lot of stuff going on. We're going to talk about that more later, but just the whole box, the whole experience of the Year of Sanderson, because all of us were part of the Year of Sanderson here. And for those viewers who were not, I believe you can still buy the boxes online through Dragonstill website. I don't know how much longer they're going to be running that, but the boxes were dope. So, with that, Glor, if you want to start us out with what your favorite part of the Year of Sanderson was.
My favorite, so if we're just talking one individual thing, because again, we're going to be discussing it more later. But if we had to talk about just one individual thing that came this year in the boxes, oh, it would probably be the Bridge Force satchel. I have replaced my purse, and I now carry on the Bridge Force.
See, and why do you feel that that is your favorite part of the Year of Sanderson, Glorf? Glorf, you still with us?
Yeah, now I am.
Okay. Sorry about that, folks. The problem is recording during the holidays is that everybody else is sitting in their PJs streaming Netflix. Well, we're doing good, productive work by talking about a fictional universe created by the greatest author of all time. This is much more productive, though. We're generating content to feed the algorithm, not consuming content. So remember, be a producer, not a consumer. But Glorf, why is the satchel your favorite part of the Year of Sanderson, and why are you lying to everybody by telling them that is?
Well, it was one of my favorite things. I want to discuss my other favorite thing later, if it's okay.
Okay.
But
Well,
I love the satchel because, huh?
oh, go ahead.
I like the satchel because it's classy and it's subtle, right? People ask me, that's a nice satchel. Where'd you get it? I can say, oh, well, and I can explain where I got it and the bridge for symbol on the front. But it is like classy enough I can wear it on the everyday and people don't stare at you. Like the Hoyd for President shirt, you get lots of questions and sometimes stares because it's quirky and it's out there, but the satchel is just classy.
Okay, yeah, but let me ask you, Glorf, and what about the pins?
Oh, yes. Well, the pins
It,
were my favorite part, like hands down by a lot. Um,
we have to clarify something here, folks. When she says the pins were her favorite part, she's not exaggerating. She put them on a lanyard that she has, and she would meticulously organize them so they were all next to each other by theme. In fact, we got to get a picture of it, Glorf. You got to get a picture of it. We'll upload it so you can see how meticulously she's done the pins. she went so far as to buy the additional Defiant box set just so she could have the Hesho pin to go with it.
Oh, you know what? That Hesho plushie was just, it was just as much of a draw.
Yeah, and she
I
did.
bought, and
Oh, go ahead.
say I did. I mean, I have to confess, I bought the lanyard for the pins. I think we were like 4 months into the Year of Sanderson, and I need a lanyard.
Yeah, she got so bad that all of her children would ask her, when is the box coming? Because they wanted to see the new pins because she got so excited about it and she'd show it off to them, despite the fact they are not quite Brandon Sanderson age yet. They were all like, yay, pins! So they play with the pins. They now know all about the pins and ask all sorts of questions. Okay, my favorite story about the pins. I know we're going way off topic and talking way too much about the pins, but this story is just hilarious. Okay, so wax, right? For those who I don't know if anybody, for those of our readers who listeners who didn't get the pins, they have pins for each character in the Cosmere, right? Well, one of the pins is wax, right? And he's out and he's pointing a gun, and the pin has him like in a pose where he's pointing a gun. And then they also had a Steris pin, okay? Now, like I said, Glorf was trying to line them up next to each other. So she puts wax on one side and Steris on the other so that he's pointing the gun right at Steris. And she's like, oh, I need to not do that because I can't have him killing his wife. And then she's like, well, I mean, I can't have him killing his wife again. And so now the only thing that her her young son knows about Mistborn is that Wax kills his wife multiple times. So yeah, that's great to explain. Spousicidal tendencies is all he knows about the Cosmere at this point. That and the opening paragraph of like Skyward, where Spence is talking about hunting down and bathing in the blood of her enemies. So the kid's probably either going to have a very bright future or is going to end up on the next True Crimes podcast. So, Fort, what about you? What was your favorite part of the Year of Sanderson?
Oh, for me, it was the pins. 100%. The pins were always just super fun, and I want to get more of them because I put them on this bag that I use for my Dungeons and Dragons games. And so I have my two favorite hobbies, Dungeons and Dragons and Sanderson, all together with the pins. I also did really love the Horde for President shirt. I love it. And also the Dragonsteel socks that came in the last box. I think clothes wear is really great. So those, I really love those.
Awesome. And are any of our commenters, tell us in the comments, listeners, but are any of you surprised that Fort does D&D? I mean, I'm picking on him, but we all do D&D. We're all major nerds. If anybody was unaware of this at this point, every person on this podcast, me, Glorf, Fort, super into D&D as well. So, you know, if you were like, well, at least they're not into D&D yet, they can still be kind of cool. We can't, and we're okay with that.
I
So,
think we're cooler because we do D&D. Our whole life doesn't revolve around Sanderson. Just 80% of it.
exactly. So, what is it that made you love the shirt so much and the socks? It sounds like you really dig the apparel for it.
I just like it. It's just the Hoyd for President shirt is really funny because we still don't know what Hoyd is up to or what his exact intents would be if he was president. But I would definitely love to ask him to see where he stands on different issues and topics. And I think he'd give very interesting answers for sure. And I mean, Glorf mentioned it. You people are like, "Oh, who's Hoyd? Why do we want him to be president?" You can be like, "He's some weird, quirky dude who goes around to different worlds collecting magic, and they look at you all weird." And then you get a chance to explain what the Cosmere is.
That's one thing I found with the Hoyd for President shirt. You knew who you could be friends with. I was in a play over the summer and I was with there were some high schoolers in the show too. It was for all ages. And one of these little teenagers walks up to me and goes, I love your shirt. And I knew she was my favorite from then on out because she knew who Hoyd was. She knew what my shirt was. It's a really great way of like gauging who you should be friends with is by wearing that shirt.
And now you've like made me wonder, Fort, what would Hoyd's policies be and where would he stand? And all I can think of is his quote that's all like, nothing ever went incredibly wrong in the world because somebody decided to do something frivolous. I feel like if there's one person in the Cosmere who has zero desire to be president, it would be Hoyd. Like, I mean, I could see Kaladin. He'd be like, I don't want to be president, but I will because I'm the only one that can protect people. But or like Dalinar being all like, I'm the one who can bring unity to this country. Or like any one of them except Hoyd, because Hoyd would be the one person that say, you don't want me as president, and I refuse the honor. I think it'd be hilarious though, because we
I
need
mean,
to
he was
know.
offered to be a god, and he decided, nah, I don't want that.
So what I'm hearing is we definitely need to have a segment sometime in the future where we have various Cosmere characters come on and run a presidential debate with them. So I mean, and we don't like getting political on this podcast, but I think we, as the Sanderverse, could agree that Hoyd would probably make a better president than anybody we've got running right now. So, in fact, that's a discussion we definitely need to have at some point. Who would be the best and the worst president in the Cosmere? So, and where does the Lord Ruler fit on that list? But
Sounds
that's
like
another.
more tier lists.
Exactly.
So, Doug, what was your favorite part of the boxes?
So, I mean, I loved all of the swag boxes. They were all awesome. Okay. There's nothing in there. And I mean, I think we all agree that the best part of the boxes of the Year of Sanderson was the books. Okay. Because that's what Brandon Sanderson does, and he does it so well. And that was the big, reveal that came with it. But one thing that I gotta like open up for a minute here. So when I first got the text from Fort where he's all like, oh, Brandon Sanderson says he's making a big announcement on YouTube tomorrow, and so I go into it, and I don't know if anybody's seen the announcement video, but he's talking about like, man, this pandemic's been really hard. I was really stressed a lot. And I was like on the verge of crying because I'm like, no, no, no. Don't tell me you're stopping. Don't tell me you're stopping. I just finished Rhythm of War. My heart can't handle that. And he's all like, well, and so with the pandemic and everything, I decided to write another book. And I'm all like, okay, major relief. And he's like, but there's something else. Then I wrote another book. I was like, what? And then he's like, and I wrote another book and another book. And he was stacking the manuscripts on top of each other. And you're like, whoa. And so I'm not saying I want another pandemic to happen. I would never want that. It was a very difficult experience, impacted many lives. But I'm just saying, if it means we can get another four Sanderson books, it definitely lessens the blow. So, Brandon, if you're listening to this, and you wanted to make the world a better place if another pandemic happens, you could totally do another four secret books, and we will all be okay with it, right? Does anybody have an issue with that?
All we need to do is convince Brandon that there's a pandemic going on so he doesn't leave the house. That's all we
I
need to do.
like it. Just like in Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. We just convince him in his own little world. Wow.
Yes.
So I like the way you think, the Fort. I like the way you
It's a
think.
little creepy. Not gonna lie, a little bit creepy.
Yeah. I mean, for legal purposes, this is a joke, FBI, NSA, anybody else. Seriously. No. But I guess my favorite part of the box was part of it was the anticipation. And that sounds weird, but it's something that every month, no matter what was going on, I would come in and I would know at least one good thing was going to happen that month, and it was going to be an awesome box, and that I was going to get something awesome. And there was just so many sweet things in the boxes themselves. There were the Elantris wax seals. I don't think anybody's mentioned. There were the Elantrifix band-aids that Glorf uses like they're going out of style. There were like all these awesome things, but I loved the quotes on the box. I don't know why. Just every time I saw the quote, I was just like, yeah, and I smiled and I got happy inside because it was kind of like rediscovering the quote from the first time. Like, because all the quotes are from very meaningful or at least enjoyable parts. Like Hoyd's quote about, if you're going to shoot, shoot for the sun. For that way, if your arrow lands, at least it hits someone. It will hit someone far away that you probably don't know. And it's like it's just reliving that joy. So for me, that was my favorite part because it was just I don't know. It was like rediscovering Sanderson again. Each box was all the surprise and suspense of a new Sanderland. So
I agree. And I actually have a funny story with that because we get the emails every month when the box ends up shipping, right? And so I got my email saying, hey, your shipment's coming. And usually it takes 2, maybe 3 days because they're shipping out of Saratoga Springs in Utah. And I only live like 2 hours north of that, so it doesn't generally take long just getting through the system and everything. But it takes about a week, and I'm following it, and I'm getting text message updates, and somehow my box ends up in New Jersey. And so I have to call USPS and be like, why is my box in New Jersey? And everybody was confused. The good news is I did get the box before Christmas came, but I still don't know why it or how it ended up in New Jersey. So
That's hilarious.
I had a little bundle of joy waiting for me a lot longer than I wanted to be waiting for it. Still great to have it though. So,
I will throw out there's one thing I have a complaint about these boxes. I had this Nightblood letter opener, and every time I try opening my bills, for some reason they just immediately crumple into ash and the sword starts glowing. So, Brandon, I don't think that was intentional, but it's definitely destroying some evil out there. I'm hilarious. Everybody in the comments, tell me how much you laughed at the joke. Because these two yahoos aren't.
Hey, that was a very
we're
good joke. I
laughing.
chuckled inside.
Yay. Air escaped through your nose slightly faster than usual. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to, though. We've been talking to Sanderson. Now it's Sanderson's turn to talk back to us. Fort, you want to give us an update on the Sanderson news? And it's big.
So it is really big, but it is also really short. He is 100% done with
Woo!
the first draft of Stormlight 5.
Yes.
He said he'll move through draft 2 pretty quickly as he's already doing revisions as he's been writing the first draft. He said that there won't be any update on the first week in January just because he's doing things, the holidays and whatnot. But Jancy is also done with her Skyward. I want to say Legacy, Skyward Legacy, yeah. And so she needs to submit that to Brandon for his revision on that. We also have the State of the Sanderson that came out. It was really long and really there's stuff in there. You can definitely go check it out and read it. I don't want to go through the whole thing because that will take an hour in and of itself.
And Brandon did say that sometime in January, he'd be releasing a YouTube version of State of the Sanderson. So if you don't want to read it, keep an eye on his channel. Sometime during January, he should put it up.
And that's all the news that I can remember. But still really big, still really important. So Stormlight 5 coming at you in December of 2024.
Oh, it's a whole year away.
I know.
It's good.
Exciting. I mean, also, let's talk for a minute about Stormlight 5. Now, as you guys may or may not know, the original working title is going to be Knights of Wind and Truth. It's officially decided to just be Wind and Truth because they felt that Knights of Wind and Truth is unwieldy. However, I, as a good born man, know that it needs to be a Katek, and so I will be referring to it at all times and all places as Knights of Wind and Truth. I will always think of it and always refer to it as Knights of Wind and Truth. Now, the rest of you can choose to stray from the Almighty's light. You can choose to indulge in heresies like the old magic and reading, even if you're not a woman. But I'm going to stick with Knights of Wind and Truth. I'm going to continue to have my audiobooks read to me I'll continue to have my books read to me by good ardents and by women. So, because we need the Almighty's light now in these turbulent times more than ever.
In my heart, it will always be Knights of Wind and Truth. But I'm not going to lie, even with the long title of Knights of Wind and Truth, I feel like the majority of people will refer to it as Wind and Truth in the future time. Just like people refer to the Shadows for Silence and the Forest of Hell as just Shadows for Silence. It's how a lot of people refer to it because it's a lot shorter. Knights of Wind and Truth is big and bulky and will forever be in my heart, that name. And when I say Wind and Truth, I'm just considering a shortening because it's too long to say Knights of Wind and Truth.
And I'm not. Yeah. What about you? Where stance do you take, Glorf, on this decisive issue of Knights and Wind and Truth versus Knights of Wind versus Wind and Truth?
Knights of Wind and Truth would have been a really cool, title, and it does the the pattern, opposite the Way of Kings. But at the same time, it is Brandon's book. It is Brandon's baby. He can name it what he wants.
He can. But the God
And I will respect that.
And the Almighty fearing among us will continue to know that it's the way the Almighty wants it. It's symmetrical. It's a katet, and that's the way it should be.
The Almighty's also dead, so.
That is a heresy spread by that heretic Dalinar Kholin. Okay?
And the biggest remnant of honor, the Stormfather. So.
Oh, so you're worshiping Spren now. Is that what I'm hearing, Fort? Just willy-nilly, I'm going to worship Spren. I'm going to throw out all customs. What's next? Letting women eat
Hey,
spicy
I
food?
mean, Rock does have red hair. I have red hair. I'm just saying. There's a
Oh, so
correlation
you're
somewhere there.
saying you're both heretics? See,
Now we're both
and
horn
this is-
eaters. Except for I don't like spicy food. I'm too white for that.
see, and this is why I think we should go back to the hierarchy. No, hashtag hierarchy did nothing wrong. So, with that, any other Sanderson news anybody wants to update us on? Okay, so now we're going to dive into favorite parts of the Year of Sanderson with an emphasis on the Secret Project specifically. So, our favorite parts of the Secret Project. Now, as a recap, we've got several items that were part of the Secret Project. Right, the first one was Tress of the Emerald Sea, which he said he was inspired to write as a reverse Princess Bride. Second was the Frugal Wizard's Guide to Surviving Medieval England, which he wrote as a what was it called? A blank room, Glorf?
White room.
A white room, where you start with no information, you just kind of drop in the character and figure things out from there.
Because the character doesn't know anything either. That's
excellent. Thank you. Yeah. So it's the character and the readers know nothing about what's happening. Third we got was Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, which was apparently more of a love letter to his wife. And then we concluded it with The Sunlit Man, which was a love letter to the fans, and which we want to hardly return to you, Brandon, that we love you too. So with that in mind, let's talk about it. If you had to say, we're going to go with favorite and least favorite Secret Project first, what would you say, Glorf?
Do we have to choose? I don't want to say least favorite. I want to say less favorite.
Fine, less favorite. The one that isn't in the top three. How about that?
Yes. Jeez, if I had to order them, it'd probably go Tress, Yumi, Sunlit Man, Frugal Wizard. It's
And
probably
why-
where it would go. What?
And why is that ordering? I can't help notice that the bottom is the non-Cosmere one.
And that's not even why it was. I actually really enjoyed Frugal Wizard. It just was, I don't know. That's the thing. It would be a really good book, but it was standing up against the likes of Tress and Yumi. Like it was smushed between my two favorites, which is just unfortunate for it. But no, that's the thing. It was really fun. I had a harder time getting into Frugal Wizard, but then once I was in it, I like made it to the end and it was really fun. I really liked it. But Tress is my favorite just because it's wholesome. There's still suspense, there's still tension, but it's just a little more
High fantasy and adventure.
yeah, high fantasy and adventure. The closest thing to fluffy, I think, Sanderson is possible of writing, right? Because in the end, all the good guys survive, right? Nobody dies, not even the bad guy dies. Like nobody dies, everything's happy, and it's almost an un-Sanderson like ending, if that makes sense. Because even in Yumi, I love Yumi. Yumi's probably one of the best love stories, if not the best love story he's ever written. But even Yumi, the end of the book comes and he's able to save her, and it's so wonderful. But you're also looking at this world that is now going to superheat, and these people are going to have to change their entire lifestyle in order to survive. Like even that ending isn't just quite as happy as Tress's. And maybe, I don't know, maybe coming into 2023, we just needed a little bit of lightheartedness in our lives. And maybe that's why I love Tress so much. As for Sunlit Man was like epic, but I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a woman, but those little love stories just they touched my soul a little more.
I'll also say one thing Glorf mentioned several times that she was surprised about was that the only reading Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England was that it's the only Sanderson book she's aware of where he actually uses earth swears. Every other book he does, there's storms or starving or rust and ruin or Eidos Domai or any of those things by the shades, by the shale. But even in Steelheart, they're constantly talking about all that calamity and whatnot. But Frugal Wizard, they use the naughty words. So they also, funny story, was listening just very recently, past couple of days, to Defiant. I was on a trip to the grocery store with the kids, was listening to Defiant, and it was the first time in, I won't spoil anything, but one of the characters lets out quite explicit word right as all of my kids are busy listening, and I'm like, dang it. Well, that luckily they were fighting with each other or playing, or I don't know. The kids, it's hard to tell if they're screaming because they're happy or upset. But I don't think they heard. But now if they start saying naughty words, I'm gonna have to explain. Listen, you could only do that when you're attacking an outnumbered alien fleet that's kidnapped your family members and is holding them hostage and is led by a genocidal maniac. And then you can use those naughty words. But in this house, we're going to stick with storming by the Almighty's name. And if you're feeling particularly explicit, starving in honor of Lick. So, sorry, Glorf. I didn't mean to cut you off, though. But
No, you're good. That was it.
so if
Well,
it's a
Doug,
little,
what's your order of your books?
oh, this is a hard one. See, here's the thing. I'm going to have to go with Glorf again. With Glorf, that Tress is probably at the top of my list. And here's why. I mean, so The Princess Bride is one of my favorite books. It was one that was I read with my mother when I was really young. I love the movie, love everything about the Princess Bride, and the idea of it felt like it. It felt like I don't know, like Gorf said, it's high adventure, high fantasy. It's very much exciting and epic, but not scary and tense. Like, I mean, Stormlight, there's like parts where you're like, oh my gosh, I hate you, Brandon, and I hate this entire book, and I hate everything about it, and I'm never reading another one of your stupid books again. Like when, a certain stupid bridgeman is all like, and for my boon, I want, and you're like, no, shut up, and you get angry at the characters. Or like in Sunlit Man, the entire time you're reading it on the edge of your seat and your butt cheeks are clenched, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's so much stress. You could be getting a massage while reading The Sunlit Man, and it wouldn't do anything because you're just going to be tense the entire time. Like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? Oh my gosh, what's happening? What's happening? Oh my gosh, is he going to survive this? Is he going to survive that? Right? But Tress, it's just like happy, and everything's going to work out. And you've got talking magical animals, and you've got a princess that's not a princess, and the bad guy, like evil Captain Crow, still gets her life saved, but has to work for the dragon, and like everything's just wonderful, and it helps that Hoy's the narrator, so it's all very exciting. And so overall, that's why Tress is at the top of my list. And at the same time, and so on the flip side, I'm going to be honest. Okay, I'm going to confess to a cardinal sin here, and y'all in the comments can choose to forgive me or not. But I haven't finished Frugal Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England, and I need to, and I need to repent. And I know. Here's why, though. If it makes it any better, it's because the way it came, the audio way we got the audiobook is it split it up into a bajillion different files, and with all the random inserts, like it'd be telling the story, and then it'd be like a random insert of like what is it, the Frugal Wizard from the in-universe book, and it got very confusing and very hard to listen to, and I had to keep skipping it. So, but yeah, so I'm sorry, internet. Sorry, Cosmere fandom. I've let you down and I've disappointed you. But I know we can get through this together and that we can do better. See, I will take responsibility for what I have done, and if I fall, I will rise each time a better man. So, with that, Fort, do you want to tell us what your favorite or
Okay, well, for me, the ranking I would give the books, and I thought about this a little bit earlier, is Trust would also be my favorite. Then it would be The Sunlit Man. Then it's a close tie between Yumi and the Frugal Wizard. The Frugal Wizard is lower because it's not Cosmere. If Yumi was non-Cosmere, Frugal Wizard would be above it. But because Yumi is Cosmere, it's a little higher. Now for Tress, I think Tress is great and it's cute and it's heartwarming. And the thing I love about it most is I think it'll have the most impact Cosmere wide because you have the Zephyr spores that they can use for space travel. You have the verdant thing, spores. That's what they're called, spores. That they can use for all these things. There's so much world building in it that you can reread it and get so much out of. The Sunlit Man, the more we learn about Stormlight and about Sigil and everything happening, the more we can understand in the Sunlit Man. Yumi is a very well contained planet. So it's like its own little story. Now it might have more significance in later in the Cosmere that we'll see, but right now it doesn't, and that's what I live for. I live for those connections. I live for those fun Cosmere things about, oh, how will this play with that, and how does this work around, and everything like that. And so that's why I have that tier ranking and why it is the way it is.
Well, and I think I love that you bring that up because I think that half the fun of the Cosmere and the Sanderverse is the same reason that people really love the MCU for so long was because there's a sense of discovery and excitement when you're all like, I found two connections between two things. You're like, I'm using my brain. Like the first time you read, it's like it's a lot. So I've got Dark Souls for Christmas on the Xbox, the first one, and
Nice.
yeah, and so, yes, I know it's a bajillion years out of date, but the reason I bring this up is because the first time through the Cosmere, I see a lot of parallels between the Cosmere and Cosmere books and Dark Souls. In that the first time you go through, you have no idea what's going on, and there's a lot of really big things happening, and you don't really understand anything, and you have to constantly be like paying attention, and you'll occasionally get stabbed through the heart for no good reason, right? I mean, all of us remember when we first found out about how Tien died, and we were like, "I'm sad." But but you take it, you do it over and over again, and you start to understand, and you start to see connections you missed before, and discover new things. It's a very rewarding journey of discovery. The Cosmere is. Although, Fort, I think you missed one of the most important world-impacting events that happened in Tress in the Emerald Sea.
Probably. What is it?
Hoyd
Boyd.
becomes an Elantrian.
That is true. Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
That's like a big deal because now
Boyd is
people
like
like,
his own
"Ooh,
story that he has, and he is connected to everything more than everything is already connected to each other.
yeah." So, oh
After
man,
what 4,500 plus years, he finally got to be an Elantrian.
yeah. Which also means that canonically, that's the one that had to have happened latest
Is because he's
because
not an
I
Elantrian in any
think
of the other books.
I think Yumi happens. Well, you could
Yumi happens
dispute about
after
Sunlit
Stormlight
Man.
4.
Yeah, after Sunlight 5.
Probably Stormlight 5, but we know
Yeah.
it's after Stormlight
Yeah.
4 because he talks about people interfering with his breath again.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's probably pretty reasonable to assume it happens after all the Stormlights.
Yeah. Well, all of them. I think Stormlight 5 happens and something horrible happens, and Hoyd is like, I gotta leave, and ditches out, and then Yumi happens and everything else.
Because we know some stuff happens with him and Dawn Shards again and stuff, and that's how Sunlit Man happens. I don't think Sigil has been around for hundreds of years. He says decades, but not multiple hundreds,
Centuries.
not centuries. Yeah.
Oh,
So
okay. Although, I'm just realizing this now. We're putting a lot of stock in decades, but what planet is he from?
Roshar.
And what is the numbers they constantly use in Roshar?
Depends.
ends.
Exactly, because I mean, and like on Scadrial, they don't use dozens. The word dozens never
Means
appears. It's
16.
always 16s. Maybe he's just using it. I don't know. Mind blown. That could be why he refers to it as decades. Because I was under the same assumption as you, Glorf, that it was just okay. We're talking a couple of decades, but we could be way off. So,
That
Wow.
is true.
so here's the next question: who do you think is the most tragic character we've seen in the secret projects? For you, which character do you look at and it's just like most makes your soul go, oh, not like a
Sigil.
happy, oh, puppy, but like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad for you.
Sigil, hands down.
Why Sigil?
Well, because something happened with his honor spin, so he's no longer a Windrunner. Something happened with auxiliary, so he's not really a skybreaker anymore. And now he's hopping from world to world, trying to live off of scraps of investiture that he can find just to survive, helping people as much as he can, even though this is an assumption everyone he knows and loves is basically dead. Not saying they are, but that's how I kind of see it. Like, he Hoyd is like, hey, how about you do this and he'll save the Cosmere? And he's like, okay, sure. And then he realizes this was just to save you. And Hoyd's like, well, it's basically the same thing. And then he goes to the Nightmare Brigade and he's like, hey, I'm here. Like, let's go get Hoyd because he double crossed me. And they're like, okay, well, let's kill you. Just lay down. He's like, wait, what? No, I don't want to die. They're like, no, but that's how we do it. And he's like, how about no? And he just now has to run everywhere.
Oh, is that
Okay.
how it happened? Or
That's kind of what I got from the context of the book.
Yeah, I can see that. So you're gonna go with Sigil even more than Ox, who gets part of the
Ox had an end.
slowly.
Ox is done. Ox has moved on to the Beyonder with whatever happens to Spren, so he can be happy and he can live life. He can be with Fenderana and maybe Sil if she ends up there at some point. Who knows?
Shut up! No, she doesn't.
And but Sigil, he is all by himself now.
Well, but on the flip side, he's not at an end, so things could improve. Things could get better.
They could get worse though. And knowing Brandon, they will probably get worse.
That's not true. Good things happen sometimes. Oh, you're a spoil sport.
sea
Although you,
tress. Sea tress as an example.
although you bring
Yeah.
up a really interesting question now. So we know Spren are pieces of raw investiture given form, right? And we're using the term Spren, but it also applies to what are those things called? Seons or like all these manifestations of sentient investiture, right? Aren't they called like type 2 biochromatic entities by Vasher or something?
Something like
But
that.
do they have a soul though that goes to the beyond? Because they have a cognitive aspect, but they don't have a physical aspect. So do they have a spiritual aspect?
Well, the physical aspect is a shard blade for the actual Spren
I
on the
guess yeah,
Shar.
that's a good point.
Well, and we
Then
know that radiants are able to bond Spren because of cracks in their spirit web. And that's how the
Mhm.
Spren are able to kind of make their way in. So there has to be a spirit aspect to them for that to be able to be the connection point.
I
So
think
I would say
everything
yes.
I think everything exists in all three. There are some that exist more in one than the other, and Spren exist more in the cognitive than they do the physical.
Well, just
Yeah,
like peoples are more in the physical than in the cognitive, right?
Exactly.
They're little
but do they
flames.
But do they return to this? Do they go to the beyond when they die? Right? If a sprint dies, does it go to the beyond, or does it just go to like, oh, boom, poof, gone? Right?
I think
No,
their
I don't think so.
consciousness and who they are and their autonomy would go into the beyond, but the power and investiture that they are, just like the investiture that is in every living being, goes back to the spiritual realm, just like all investiture does after being used and consumed.
Well, this is deep. We're gonna need some serious Sanderson scholarship on this. We're
We
gonna
need
get
to
our
go to
best
Silverlight
copper
and ask them
minds.
these questions.
Exactly. Hey, Chris, write a treatise on it for us. Okay, Glorf, what do you think is the most tragic? Who do you think is the most tragic character in Secret Projects?
Honestly, that's the thing. Tress and Yumi both end up like most of the characters are, I mean, I guess in the case of Yumi, most of the characters are already dead. It's like, oh no, look, we never existed. And And then like Tress, everyone ends up happy. So really unless you're looking at Frugal Wizard, but that one's a pretty much happy ever after too. And I guess no spoilers, not entirely, but that's the thing. Sigil and Ox really are the only options, right? And maybe maybe some of the other Threnodites, but like I think it mostly is Sig and Ox, each in their own way. The fact that Ox has a hero's death, but it's still sad because he's not entirely dead, right? Because like he used up all of his self, but he's still technically around. Stig can still summon him as a blade and things. But that like makes it very sad, is that kind of incomplete death. But then again, Sigil all of a sudden being all alone and still on the run. But then again, at the end of Sunlit Man, he's feeling a little bit of extra hope, right? He goes to that other planet and feels that hope. So I don't know, somewhere between the two of them. What about you, Doug? You think it's Ox?
Well, the Doug actually, I think you're wrong on nobody else has a tragic character. For me, as I've thought about it, it's Leon,
Oh,
right? She is trying, like, she's relatively normal person, because like that's the thing is for some of these big people, bad things happen to them. It's part of being the hero, the chosen one. But Leon, she's just a normal person. Maybe she's a little bit harsh towards Yumi. She's a little bit, probably maybe crosses the line into abusive. She's kind of strict and unyielding. But on the other hand, she's also like, okay, I need to make sure that all of my people, like literally everybody is depending on me to make sure the Yokihijo does her job so that they can continue to live. So she's, it's a fairly stressful position, and she's just trying to do her best. And then one day out of nowhere, her soul gets ripped out and eaten by a machine. And it's like, oh no, that's sad. That's the end. But it's not, because she has to get forced to go back as a nightmare and relive the same day over and over again, knowing something's horribly wrong, but never quite knowing what it is. And then as a nightmare, she's constantly just trying to fight, and like she's just like, oh, I mean, I don't know. I feel so bad for her. And then Painter finally manages to paint her and give her form, and it's kind of her ending, and it allows her to kind of break free to an extent. And so I don't know. For me, I don't know. I just have something about people that like minor characters that then sacrifice themselves heroically, because like big heroes, it's like, okay, you know what, if Kaladin or somebody else has to sacrifice themselves, that's something that they've taken on. That's But the random people, Leon, uh Rail, not Rail, what's the Pride Prince's name, Ruthar, you know uh not Tonkfa, what's the other
Rowan.
wagon guardian, Rodion, yeah, what's the other guardian, the Tavlaka's, Bluth, right? Those people, they're just like random Joes. And it's like, okay, you don't got superpowers, you don't got a sprain, you don't got the commanding primal spirits, but you're gonna try and do the right thing because that's all you got. So for me, I'm gonna say it's Lehume. To me, she's the big one, the most tragic character. Because even like Ox and Sigil, they're entangled in big things, and they kind of know that the path they're on was not going to be happy to begin with. So, and Ox, like his end is happy. Like he gets to do one last thing to save everybody, and Sigil, his world can still get better. Things can get better. Maybe Kaladin, what probably going to happen is Kaladin's trying to find him, and as soon as he's going to find him, he's going to be all like, oh, the Night Brigade's chasing me, and Kaladin's going to be all like, oh, the Night Brigade? Let me show him this, and he's going to give him a little seal action, and he's going to cut off all their heads. He's going to cut through the shades. Shardblade could probably cut through shades, couldn't it? What do you
It's
think?
investiture v investiture.
I think I don't think so. I mean,
Nightblood could eat a shade.
yeah, Nightblood could. I don't think a question, but
Nightblood could eat anything. Nightblood ate a vessel.
yeah,
Nightblood
exactly.
eats perpendicularities. If you
Yeah.
shoved it in a planet, it would eat a whole freaking planet. Like Nightblood, if the standard is Nightblood can do it, so anybody can eventually do it. It's kind of a
I think a Shardblade would have a hard time because it is invested. It would meet resistance, if anything. But I also feel like shades exist in the cognitive realm more than they do the physical, so there's not much to cut in the physical realm.
Yeah, well, right. The way a shard blade works, though, is by severing the soul itself, right? Like
Oh,
that's
I
what they
guess
talk
that's
about.
true.
Yeah.
It severs your spiritual aspect, and so
That's a
So
good
then
point.
why
So
can't Seiza just do that?
do
Sigil.
what?
Just slice them.
Well, I mean, it's one thing to be all like, okay, I can fight a shade. It's a whole nother thing to be like, okay, there's a whole company of highly advanced mercenaries with super powered weapons and shades and like a bajillion other things and clearly hemalurgy, like super hemalurgy, chasing me that I don't think I can fight all at once, all at the same time. And like,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
possibly.
So we're running low on time, but most epic moment in the secret projects, or the moment that made you most go, yes, yes, woo!
hmm.
So I know the most common one, and this is for me, but I have a secondary run up. The most common one will
Okay.
be like when Sigil flies through the sky and the Skybreaker symbol, and he's like, "I'll protect," and that's awesome. I think the best moment I think that's a good runner up is when Crow takes Tress into the dragon's lair and says,
Yes.
"Hey, I have this girl as an offering for a boon," and Tress is like, "I have a person for an offering and a boon," and the dragon's like,
Yeah.
interesting. She just know you, just 180, Uno reverse, right on Crow. Just I can play that too.
Yeah.
I think
That
that's a
part was
great moment.
awesome. I love that part because Tress is all like, I'm gonna flip the whole narrative around. Like when I had it read to me, I was like, wait, hold on, back up. Did I understand that correctly? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh yeah. So if you had to choose, which one would you choose for it? If
I
you
choose the one
could
with
relive
Tress.
one of those moments again, completely new, you'd
Yeah,
choose Tress.
Tress. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. Just like the intellect behind it, like, oh no, I'm in a horrible predicament. What do I do? And it's just like Uno reverse. Just like the dragon can obviously tell she's the one bound and hostage, but he doesn't incinerate her instantly. He's like, I'll hear you out. What's going on here? Like, just the guts that it takes to do something like that and the intelligence, I think, shows Tress's character right there. That she's willing to do it and is smart enough to think of it.
And I love that, like you said, it shows her character development because at the beginning her whole thing is I don't even want to ask anybody for help because I don't want to impose. And by this point though, it shows that she's like, I know what I want. I'm gonna be in charge. I'm gonna do what needs to be done. And boom, I'll sacrifice this horrible woman, to a dragon. That's what it takes. Oh yeah. Glorf, what about you?
I need to like read all these again so I like make sure my answer is correct.
Or I
But I
guess
think mine
let
would
me
actually
rephrase
be,
that. What do you think about what Fort said first? And then you give us yours.
oh, I had actually kind of because I remember that plot point, but I'd forgotten exactly like how it felt to read that part. That is a good one. That's a fun one because when she goes in, you're like, hey, I know this is gonna turn out well. The whole vibe of the story is it's gonna turn out well. So what's gonna happen to Tress? And then when she's the one that comes back out, you're like, oh. So yes, I like that one. I agree with that one.
Awesome. So what
But
would
if
you
I had
say?
to, so the problem with Yumi, okay, is that there are kind of two climaxes going on at the same time, right? You've got Yumi stacking her rocks versus the machine, and then you've got Painter rounding up the other nightmare painters to try to defeat the giant nightmare incursion. And so there's kind of these two epic moments at the same time. But I think the one that really gets me is Yumi's working all on her own, and she's using this art that she has perfected over centuries, unknowingly perfected over centuries, right? Because she to her it's just been one day over and over again, and she uses this and basically like, and I mean, she probably knows that she's going to end up, leaving too with all the rest of the nightmares and the cognitive shadows and things, but she does it anyway. And she's able to defeat this machine using things that she's like basically like ancient investiture techniques that she's been working on for centuries. And just that whole process where it goes to Painter and then it comes back to her as she's just continuing to work, continuing to climb, continuing to build. And then a moment when it finally happens, it's like this, it's almost more of like an excited, like, yeah, moment, because it keeps being interrupted with the nightmare battle. So I really like that one. And then just like, not like the most, yes, climactic moment, but the most like, aw moment was definitely when he was able to paint her back. He goes, no, nope, not doing it. And then paints a picture of her and paints her back. I like that part too.
That's definitely a great part. I also need to reread all of them just to get that, because they were both going on at the same time and it was so fast paced, and so this is happening that I kind of got lost in a lot of it, and so that ending was very convoluted and weird and crazy for me, and so I didn't get as good of experience as I could have if it was like focused kind of on one and then the other. Or I think Sanderson did a great job with what was given. He always does. I just had a hard time keeping up with how it was presented to us. And that's a fault of mine. But that is a good part.
Oh yeah, no, and I totally agree. Like, it's definitely one of those books you need to reread again because it's just like, whoa. But I think that's one thing Brandon does sometimes, is that part's not actually part of the book, right? When Painter paints her back, that's part of the epilogue. So Brandison leaves it on a, oh no, Yumi's dead. And you're like, no. And then you read the epilogue and you're like, okay, fine. But your heartstrings are pulled out. And it's just, dude.
So what about you, the Doug? What was your favorite?
Okay. So here's the thing. For me, I think one of my favorite parts, or one of the most epic parts, is in The Sunlit Man, but it's not the scene where he goes flying off. Because I think we saw that moment coming. We knew this. For me, it's when he does the chasm kata, because it's raining and he starts swinging the spear and the hiya and the woo, and it's like, and it's, I don't know, maybe there's supposed to be something cosmologically significant about it, but when he does the chasm kata, it's him waking up again to who he was. Because I didn't realize this until just now, but Sigil, Khaled, and Kaladin are in very similar places in their books, if that makes sense. In Sunlit Man, Sigil is a lot where Nomad is a lot in the same place that Kaladin was when he goes to the Honor Chasm the first time. He's like, there's no point in saving anybody. Everything I try to do just ends up with everybody killed. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of constantly fighting. I'm ready to just give up. I just can't help these people. I'm not going to save them. And then he does the chasm kata. And he's not convinced at that point that he's like, okay, I'm going to help these people. I'm going to save them. But he is starting to realize, okay, maybe I can turn things around. Maybe there is a glimmer of hope. Just like when Kaladin is in the chasms and he does the chasm kata, and everybody looks at him and they're like, "Oh, you just did what? With who? For how many spheres?" And they're just all slack jawed. And Callan's like, "No, it was stupid. I shouldn't do it. I'm not touching a spear again. No, I'm not allowed to touch a spear. I'm not ready for that." It's the same thing going on, but then it leads to where that is. And to me, that's their moment where they're reclaiming, they're acknowledging there is a part of them that still cares, that can still hold on to things. And so for me, I think that's probably one of the most epic moments, along with, Sazed City, or not Sazed. Wow, I've been using too many S names. Along with painters frantically like paint, 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 and all the other painters are around him and they're like, paint as fast as you can, paint, 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 paint. And he's this guy that's always been like, nobody really like, he's kind of been an outcast. Everybody thought he's weird and whatnot, but he's finally getting his moment in the sun to be like, okay, listen, I know what I'm doing. And he really gets to just use all the painting because he does such a great job. And to me, it's even more big because it comes right on the heels of when he finds out that the covenant position he wanted all along, I can't remember what it is. What are they called? The night something painters. Does anybody remember off the top of their head?
I
Okay.
don't remember what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah, but that super secret elite group of the painters, he comes on right at the heels as you realize this, wait a minute, these people are losers. And I'm the only one that can, and so he still has to go out and save everybody. And for me, that's I really love that part, but not as much as I do the chasm kata. Like, I mean, come on. Anybody listening to this can't tell me when they were all like, when they started hearing about the chasm kata, they weren't all like, oh, wait, he's doing it. He's doing it. Right? Because it's not just he does the chasm kata, he does the chasm kata, and everybody, all the, what are they called? The charred? Yeah. They're all like,
Yeah.
run away. So for me, that was near the top of the list.
Chasm
So,
Kata is a great one. That is great. He puts his arms across and he got his bridge for it. Amazing. I love that. Great part.
so, um,
It has been a wonderful year of Sanderson.
it
It
really
has
has been.
something memorable.
Very much.
And so to conclude this year of Sanderson, we're going to give everybody our Sanderson related memes. Do you want to start us out, Glorf?
I would love to. So I made multiple. I'm gonna do this one because it fits best, but if you guys would offer me an extra one at some point. Here we go. So it's hard to see because there's a lot of stuff on it, but it's the picture of the portals opening in Endgame with all the heroes coming through. And it's the beginning of 2023. What do I have to look forward to this year? And then next to each of the portals, it says the Sunlit Man, Dragonsteel Socks, Trust of the Emerald Sea, Shoal Air Freshener, the Sanderson Curiosity, Sunni Pup, Wait for President Shirt, Frugal Wizard's Handbook, Yumi the Nightmare Painter, Bridgeforce Satchel, and Cosmere Character Pins are all coming out of the portals to give us a good 2023.
Those make me all happy. I like
I
all
know
of them.
it's less of a laugh meme and more of a smile meme.
Yeah, because now what do we have to look forward to in 2024? Stormlight
Stormlight
5.
5,
Awesome, yay.
Stormlight 5, woo!
but it's not till the end of the year.
I know. It's annoying.
All right.
Court, you want to give us your meme?
Yep, I can do that. So mine is a SpongeBob meme where he has his little lemonade stand and at the top of it says Wave King Leatherbound Kickstarter. And there's a few people there, just a few people buying it, and then underneath he puts up a little paper sign saying Year of Sanderson Kickstarter, and everybody is there. Just like how fast and how effective this was just amazing. And I love how quick everyone got on there. Biggest Kickstarter
Ever.
And that's a reminder, everyone, this was the biggest Kickstarter in history. And part of the reason he did it this way, right? Because, I mean, Brandon Sanderson's a great author, but he's also a solid dude, is that he was all like, listen, a lot of traditional publishing houses, he talked about this when he went to them and he'd say, listen, I want to do this kind of thing for fans. And kind of release special editions for people who pay more. And they're like, nah, that'll lose us money. Tell you what, we're going to come out with the regular edition. And then a year later, we'll come out with a special edition that's going to be 3 times as much. And we're going to charge those suckers multiple times. And Brandon was all like, listen, I don't want to do that. I want to reward my fans. And so for me, that's a huge deal. So, and that's part of why he has such a loyal following, is that he cares about his craft more than his money. So now I've got my meme, and I had a different meme planned, but then we were discussing things and I just couldn't help myself. So it's an Uno reverse card, and underneath it says, Dragon Isis, Tress said, her voice ragged, I have come to initiate your ancient pact of promise. To this end, I have brought you this slave to work in your domain. Then Tress gestured to Crow, because she pulled the Uno reverse card on Crow.
Oh, I like it.
Awesome.
Great.
Very good.
Well, everybody, I mean, this is kind of the end of our first year. We haven't been doing this for a full year, but at the beginning of the year, I didn't think this was even a blip on my radar. But now that we're coming, this will be the last podcast 2023. Hopefully, we'll get it out on time. But we know there aren't many of you, but we're appreciative of those of you who are here with us. And I'm appreciative of my wonderful co-stars, Fort and Glorf, who make this special. So, into 2023, signing off. And this is the Doug saying, the world is not worse. You are not worse for your association with the world. The world is better because of its association with you.
This is for I also love my wonderful co-hosts here. We're going to keep going in 2024, so don't think this is the last of us. This is Fort saying honor's dead, but let's see what we can do.
And this is Glorf signing off with Sanderson's favorite phrase, err on the side of awesome. See you in 2024, everybody.
See you, everybody.
Bye.
Adios. Bye.